You're listening to Sharing Things, a new University of Edinburgh podcast from the Alumni Relations team about the university community, which we want to get to know a little better. Hi, I'm Amalia. I'm a fourth-year student, and I'm the host of this podcast. In Sharing Things, I talk to alumni, staff, and students about their stories. Guests have all been asked to bring an object as a starting point for discussion, and the object can be anything important or significant. It can represent an event, person, decision, experience, or it can just remind them of something. Let's see where this takes us. In this episode, you will meet Srishti, Chaudhary, and Abrisham Ahmadzadeh. Abrisham is a classical studies student entering her fourth year. She's working on the launch of Dangerous Women, a book consisting of 50 pieces, all answering the question, what does it mean to be a dangerous woman? She likes camping and singing. Srishti is a writer and studied creative writing at the university. Her first fiction novel, Once Upon a Curfew, was released in April 2019, and she likes books, writing, and watching trees. We talk about writing, creativity, dangerous women, bucket lists, and more. Welcome, Abrisham and Srishti, to Sharing Things. How are you today?
Very good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very impressed.
Yeah, I like that. So what have you brought to the studio today and why?
I bought a coat that I bought for the first time in Edinburgh. I think it was one of the first things that I bought here because, I'm from there and it's a tropical country. So I never needed to buy a coat because I live in Delhi. It's cold in the winter, but you still don't need a coat that much. This is one of the first things that I bought, and it's special to me because it was like the start of something. And I think the weather determines a place and how you react to the place a lot, and it was exciting for me, and I'm still using this coat, and it just signifies to me as the start of something new. And it was a great time for me here, and I feel that this coat is special because it reminds me of the first days that I was here, and I was a little bit lost, and this was something that I started with.
You were basically living in that coat from then on, I guess. I brought my notebook. I have one of these bad boys a year. Obviously, it can't be seen, but it's a big leather book. I mean, I hope it's not real leather.
Oh, it has a bunch of stickers on it.
Yeah,
as well.
it's covered in stickers from my past year, from places I've been to. I've just been on a year abroad, so this has been with me everywhere, and it has literally everything I've ever done in it.
Oh, wow.
For the past year. Kind of scrapbooked in, but also just like my basic to-do lists, like get up and brush your teeth is written on most pages. Apparently that's something I forget. But yeah, it's got everything in it. Like,
it's super cool.
When I get them out, I feel a bit like I can read back through my own life, which is really fun.
Nice. What do you feel like it means to you?
It stands as like a reflective thing. I always make things like this thinking, when I'm an adult, I'll look back at how cool my life was and be so jealous. But I'm also just like, it's quite a nice, like, reassuring thing to do, I think. To be able to put something in the book feels like I've done something. And it's also just a really nice thing to have. There's one page in here. I don't know if I'd be able to find it. But it's just one page. I kept the whole thing blank and I wrote, it's getting colder. And I was living in Sweden for the year, so it really was getting colder. And then when it started getting warmer again, I looked back and was like, it's no longer getting colder. And I always think it's quite nice, but I can't find it right now.
It's such a cool book because it has stickers, it has tickets in it, it has like everything.
Yeah, I like to go for maps of the places I've been to. So first day of any holiday mostly is spent running around different tourist centres trying to find their like most basic illustrated map. And then it's just kind of on top of that, just my mind ramblings. It's a nice thing to carry about and be able to show people, I guess. People are like, true. How's your year been? Well, read my book.
I find it easier to just write about my things because I'm a writer. So I just like write blog posts and stuff. So I find it easier to go back and read those than collect the tickets and then then scrapbook them. But it's very cool. Yeah, I appreciate it.
See, now you know everything about me. But then again, if I read your blog posts, I feel like I'd get a similar insight, I guess.
I hope so. Otherwise, I wouldn't be a very good writer.
Do you blog regularly?
ever since blogs came around, I think I was just 14 or 15, I used to blog a lot, and that really helped me find a way to express what I was saying. And I was a big blogger on, I don't know, Blogspot and WordPress and stuff. But I feel that was more like journal, like everyday stuff that I would write. But ever since I grew up more, I started to write more fiction, which is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I think I started to write a little less bloggy stuff. I mean, now that I look back on it, or if I read it, it's like super whiny and super lame. Like, oh, why did that boy not look back at me, and some stupid stuff. But yeah, I write more like fictional stuff now, and I write regularly in the sense that I'm always working. So I finished my first book, but now I'm working on my second one, and I feel that it doesn't give me enough space to also write about my day or like what I'm gonna do.
Do you write fiction in your journal?
Not so much fiction. Maybe it's not necessarily in the journal, but I went through a poetry phase this year. It was a bit rogue. I had some friends who were really into poetry, and I'd go along to their open mic nights and watch it, and it was really amazing, and they had such beautiful things to say that I kind of picked up on it. And I don't know if you've been to any poetry open mic nights, but they kind of stand up and they're like, I couldn't sleep one night, so I just thought, oh, I'll just write a poem. And then it's like this perfectly well-versed, beautiful piece of, I don't know, literature. So I had this one night where I couldn't sleep, and I was like, this is what they all do when they can't sleep. And I can't, it's not often that I can't sleep. I really like sleeping. And I was lying there like, this sucks. What should I do? And then realised everyone else would be writing a poem. So decided to write a poem. But I did that on my phone notes pages. I know some people who have researched into people's notes. I think notes pages can be quite exposing, more so than a journal.
So exposing.
It's true, yeah.
Something you don't necessarily want people getting hold of.
What inspired you in the middle of the night that one time?
It all got a bit weird and cheesy. It was a bit lame. I mean, it was very bad poetry, but I think the idea of, like you said, taking something out of yourself. I kind of wrote about some random stuff. I think, I don't know, like wrote about a romantic sunset or hello and welcome to my mind. But like the idea of processing something into words, I think I can kind of, after that experience, relate to a little bit. But I can't say that I'm anywhere near an author like you are.
I mean, it's the only thing I know how to do, so I better do it. But I like to write. I always wanted to write ever since I read good books, so I wanted to create good books. And J.K. Rowling was a huge inspiration for me, as for everyone.
Classic.
Yeah, that's
Is
very
that
classic.
why you're in Edinburgh?
Yeah, it was a little bit influential for me. But before I started my master's, I was a writer who never really wrote, because I always thought that I would write something one day, but I never really got down to it because it takes a lot of time. But once I started my master's here, which was in creative writing, I had a routine and I would write every day. And since then, I've been writing a lot.
Where do you get inspiration from?
Everywhere, for sure, but I would like to be a much better observer than I am now, because I think that's your food for writing. I do keep a database of all the dialogues or the nice lines that I hear, or nice jokes. So maybe I'm stealing your jokes.
That's your notes pages.
Yeah,
Other
that's
people's
my notes.
conversations.
For sure. I mean, I make a list of these things, and when I'm writing something, and if I'm out of inspiration, I just take one of the jokes and somehow make it fit in the scene. Also, I feel that reading good books is very inspiring for you to write something. I think that's the case with all creative arts. I mean, of course, you have to consume a lot of good art to create something yourself. Do you also play some music, or
I was that kid that tried and failed at everything. Or probably didn't even fail. Like, everyone had such good intentions for me to be great, and I just was like, nah, violin's lame. The flute's not cool enough. The guitar's too heavy. I don't know. I kind of reached the end of my schooling, high school, and was like, oh crap, I should have put more time into this. There's been so many great resources and I've not done anything. I sing a lot. in the shower, out the shower. I'm a professional shower singer. But no, like nothing else has really been honed in. But I know what you mean. Those kind of creative influences kind of come together. I mean, you can be listening to a song and be like, wow, I want to paint. Or wow, I'm going to write a story. I think it definitely, like, that kind of inspiration can come from other people's creativity as well, right?
Yeah, it's true. But you still study the classics and you are working on a publishing project.
Yeah, I think I like to keep a creative outlook on everything. I think everything should be looked at through a journal. I mean, I'm also a very big Harry Potter fan. For a long part of my life, I haven't been able to sleep without having Stephen Fry read me Harry Potter before I go to sleep. I can't shake it. I'm addicted. But I think that kind of love for stories has always been a part of my life, which means everything you say gets me so excited because I don't think I can write stories, but I have such a passion for it through classics. And I guess through, well, working on this book, it's a series of short stories, but also just like interpretations. There's 50 pieces answering the same question and kind of seeing how different people narrate that story.
What is the question?
What does it mean to be a dangerous woman? So this book is being crowdfunded in the autumn of 2019. So we are raising money to release this anthology. It stems from the original Dangerous Women project, which was put on by the university, specifically by the Institute for Advanced Studies in the Humanities, between International Women's Day 2016 and International Women's Day 2017. And they incredibly did 365 posts. They were essentially blog posts for every day for a year, answering the question, what does it mean to be a dangerous woman? Which has kind of become the question of my life. I can't escape it now.
What does it mean to be a dangerous woman?
Okay, well, if you want to know that, you have to pledge for my book.
Okay.
Find us on Unbound.
But for you, what's the best definition that you find for yourself if you have to answer this question?
Well, it's interesting because the authors of the book, I mean, they're fantastic. There's 52 amazing self-identifying women in the book who have kind of been like, hey man, I'm a dangerous woman, like it's all about me, or like this woman in history who's been completely ignored deserves to be given credit as dangerous. So that the idea of danger stems from a couple of lowbrow articles put out by the Daily Mail in around 2016, referring to first Shami Chakrabarti, former head of Liberty, and then Nicola Sturgeon as the most dangerous woman in Britain, like inverted commas, or like the most dangerous wee woman in politics. I don't know, they've thrown the term around quite a bit about these quite powerful women with like great status and ability to do stuff and challenge people and like with the power to make a difference are being brandished as dangerous, as if like they're a threat in some way. So I guess my answer to that would be, to be dangerous, you should always be a threat. You should always be challenging an 18th century white male diplomat, I think, to be dangerous. You should always be doing something that wouldn't have been acceptable 100 years ago.
Yeah. I like that. What do you feel like it means to you?
To be a dangerous woman.
Dangerous woman. Or how would you answer that question?
I feel that in India, the very existence of being a woman and doing what you think is right in your mind is being a dangerous woman. Because, of course, there are still a lot of traditional roles that are imposed on women. And I feel that there's less space for self-determination. So I do feel that the very existence of doing what you think that you want to do for yourself is being dangerous, because in that way you challenge so many roles that are put on you or so many institutions that try to bring you down. And I feel that it's very different in the context of the East and the West. But I feel that it's so much more challenging to be a woman there. But I feel that it's so much more also inspiring for me to see how women every day fight against a lot of issues and still are able to do so much. Yeah, I love the term dangerous women.
Got to reclaim it.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of all I can think in that is that you've been a writer now in India, but also in Edinburgh, where there's a lot of space for female writers in the UK at the moment. The first thing that came to my mind was Sally Rooney writing amazing books.
I love her books.
They're amazing, and everyone's reading them, and they're making such like cutting statements whilst being quite easy to read. But is that a different job when you're back in India to be a female writer? I guess.
Be a female writer. For sure, it's different because there's not lots of funding. I think we have just one creative writing program in the country, in just one university, which focuses entirely on creative writing. But traditionally, I feel that in India, literature is dominated by women. Publishing is dominated by women because, these are like more known as more soft professions. So it's more appropriate for women. But I feel very lucky because I've had great women mentors, icons that I could look up to all my time. I was working in a publishing house the last year, and both my bosses were women. The entire office was, I think, female, and I had great teachers, all of whom were women, and I feel very lucky because I also studied in a girls' college, and I realized how affirmative spaces for women, how much they help, and how they can bring forward women's revolution fight for
yes,
and
on the fight.
Yeah, I would say it's different because you can do a PhD and you can be paid to write and to study writing, but I think it's more. I think writing generally is more like stealing hours in which you can do it. It's not considered a profession. It doesn't pay amazingly unless you're super famous on your first book. But I think things are changing, and I'm positive because I think the Indian publishing industry is growing a lot. And I think people say all the time, oh, people don't read anymore. But it's not true. I think industry as such is growing a lot, and the Indian economy is growing, and people are spending money on things that they wouldn't have otherwise. There are lots of adaptations of books because of all the OTT platforms, Netflix, Amazon Prime, and they're buying content. There's lots of creative stuff happening.
So what makes you guys feel like present in the moment? Because you both talk about like writing and putting your experiences down on paper and stuff, but is that related to like a feeling of presentness?
I mean, maybe you'd know this more as a writer, but I think when you're creating something, I probably do more drawing and observing that way rather than observing through literature. But I think you're having to sit still and focus on yourself and how you're feeling and what you're projecting. It's quite like a therapeutic way of stopping and reflecting on the moment and being present in yourself.
Yeah. I mean, when I arrived here in Edinburgh a week ago, I didn't have a notepad with me, and then because I had so many things going on in my mind and I had these thoughts that I needed to write down, so I went to Tesco and I bought a notepad because I couldn't deal with it. Like, I had to write some stuff down. But it does make you feel more present in the moment, but it also makes you seal the past, like recollect what you had in your mind, and also, I don't know, plan for what's coming next. But I feel that writing it down does kind of make it more permanent, or make it seem more like it's happening, it's there.
That to-do list that once it's written down, it is real.
Like, yeah, it's true.
Do you ever finish a to-do list?
Not entirely ever, because I'm ambitious. I write too much.
Put things like, in 5 years I will have done this on the to-do list, and then you just can never tick it off.
Your to-do list is that long term? Really?
No, not always.
5 years.
I was just looking at a to-do list in the notebook. They're pretty weird. There are literally things like cut toenails or remember to text this person. That's often a part of my processing in the moment, is like just writing down everything I want to get done. And I think that's what you mean by being ambitious, of like things you'd like to get done in an ideal world if your day was completely clear and you could just text all your friends.
Do you have a bucket list?
Oh, my first ever journal I wrote when I was 16. I just finished my GCSE exams at school in North London, and we had the longest summer holiday you ever get in the UK once you finish those exams. The first time in your life you've got more than 6 weeks. And I was like, wow, there's so much I want to do. I wrote this massive bucket list. And I wonder, I'd like to look back at it because I did a lot of it that summer.
Do you remember anything that you did?
I mean, a lot of it was like 16-year-old fantasy, like go skinny dipping and like eat ice cream on the Eiffel Tower. I don't know, loads of like really romantic ideas of what a 16-year-old summer should be like. And obviously I just didn't do very much that was that exciting. But there were definitely a lot of nice things I did do, like go and spend a day in the park painting, or I don't know, there was probably something like write poetry.
Oh, so wholesome.
Yeah, it was quite wholesome, also some of it quite not wholesome, and I think I probably did better at the not wholesome stuff, but I quite liked it, but it's not something I've continued with. I don't know, have you ever had a bucket list?
I do have a bucket list, but it keeps changing as I go on. But the biggest thing on my bucket list is to learn another language, because I feel I would love to be that person who can speak many languages and then use it creatively, because every language has a different structure that if I translate it in my writing in English, it will give it a unique edge. But I didn't do it yet. And yeah, I would love to live in a place where English is not the main language, so I can learn another one.
Do you mostly write in English then?
Yes, because we are educated in English since a very young age. So I do write in English mostly. I mean, our conversational language is also Hindi. My first language is Hindi. But I feel that we lose a lot of it because we're educated in English. Now that I look back, I want to reclaim my language and read literature in Hindi and start to write more in Hindi, because a lot of the language is lost because you don't use it enough. Or English is more of an aspirational language. It's easy to find jobs. It's everything to do with it is better with English because colonization.
Exactly. Big boss came in and said, you guys must speak like this now.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you speak in English with your family?
No, not with my family. With my family, I speak in Hindi, but I think English is our social language. So when I meet someone my age, at first we'd probably use English.
Okay.
But also because the language that I speak is Hindi, and although it's spoken by a majority of people in India, there are 24 official languages in India that everyone speaks different. So English is easy that way because mostly everyone knows English and it's a neutral language. It's not my language or your language. So I feel that our language didn't get enough developed as well because people just stopped using it as much. So there are like all the new age words that probably we don't have, or we have, but no one will use it. So you don't know what's the word for, say, computers or WhatsApp or Facebook. Yeah.
Do you know any languages or any other languages than English?
No, around you two I feel really small. I only speak English.
But
My English
Swedish
is pretty questionable.
You lived in Sweden for a year.
I lived in Sweden for a year and I can say, inte svenska. What? I don't speak Swedish. I'm not Swedish.
You're not Swedish.
Jag pratar inte svenska. I don't speak Swedish. Languages is not my strong suit. I mean, I know you say you don't write in Hindi. Do you think there's other Indian influences in your writing?
For sure. I think I don't think I can write about Europe. I feel more connected to India, and I feel that there's so much more to write about. And I always say, Europe, the vanilla continent. But
We'll take it. Yeah.
But yeah, it's all about India, and that's why I chose not to stay back, because I know that I write about India and Indian culture and all my influences are Indian. So of course I would look to publish it there at first, and then maybe see if it works, if it can also work in other countries. But it's funny because although we write in English, I use a lot of Hindi words in the middle because it makes it feel more authentic and more connected for people who would read it. It's hard sometimes to capture an experience in English because it would be so typically Indian for me that maybe the language cannot capture it well enough as the language there could. But that is one of the struggles that all people who were colonized at some point face, because they all have this other language that has been imposed for years, and then they're probably like stuck in the middle, like, oh, I'm good at this, but I should be good at this, and now I don't know where to go.
All my family are from Iran. I mean, I was born and grew up in London. I've been in the UK my whole life, but I see what you mean of that. Like, it's really upsetting to me that I don't speak Farsi. I go to Iran and can't communicate with people, and like I love it there. I love my culture. I mean, it has its faults, of course, but the idea that kind of Englishness prevails, I don't know. We've got it with Dangerous Women. It's hopefully I mean, I can't say we're perfect, but we've tried to get representation from all around the world and from all different types of voices, like all ages, class, backgrounds, ethnicities. And it's been amazing to read through that and see kind of the different perspectives. I guess, as we were saying, the idea we've got the one question and then how different women from around the world respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing how they tap into like their culture's way of responding to being a woman. And there's texts from South America, from India, Bangladesh. We've got a lot of stuff in there. I think that's been the most exciting part for me is just to read it and hear these perspectives and like give agency to all these people who like are bringing power to women.
Yeah. And what is the answer you hear from Iran or from India?
Women in Iran, I love them. They're the sisterhood, man, the Iranian sisterhood. I mean, it's not something I can necessarily comment on without bias. I'm sure it's a bigger topic than just what we're talking about now, but I do think there's a lot of power in kind of behind the scenes. And of course, Iran's a country that is affected so heavily by their media representation. I'm sure you have it when you read articles about India written in England. You're like, what are you talking about? That's not real.
Yeah, it's true.
We're not all impoverished.
Yeah.
I think books like this need representation from these kind of cultures. We haven't got an Iranian author, but the original project does have some Iranian women writing for it. One of my favourite pieces, I hope the author doesn't mind me speaking about it, but it's about a widow losing the agency of colour because as soon as her other half had passed away, she was forced to only wear black for the rest of her life. I'm not sure if this is something that happens in India.
I think white, not black.
Oh, white. Okay, yeah. But talking about how she used to love to wear red and be flamboyant and colourful and how her life then just becomes colourless. I don't know, hearing these things, that's a cultural thing that marks someone who's lost their husband or their wife. Like reading about that through the means of a story, that's what I'm into it for.
Yeah.
Kind of hearing people's stories that also educate you on culture.
I'm going to ask the last question now. If you can associate your object with one word, what would it be?
I think it would be cold because I mean, when I came here, it was like, why is it so cold? It's still September. And because I had never lived in a cold temperature yet, of course, I got used to it. And it's really not as cold as people made it out to be for me. Yeah, it would be definitely cold because the minute that I got out of my flight, the first time that I came here, a cold blast of wind just hit my face. And there were all these flight attendants who walked out with me and they were like, Scotland, I love this country, always a great weather. And I was just like, is this what I'll have to do for 1 year? But I mean, of course, the next day was sunny. Of course, it's annoying when you go out and there's all this wind. But I feel that the cold drives you inside but brings you closer. You're having more dinners together, you're meeting people, you're cooking together. And it's not, when it's the summer, it's like everyone is outside and spread about. But when it's cold, you're cozying up inside. And yeah. But yeah, I've always said this, that I feel that the cold drives you inside but brings you closer to each other.
That's so lovely. Just thinking about all my nice memories of Edinburgh winter. I'd say my journal. I actually call it a journal.
Oh, journal.
Because I like to be pretentious about it. I think it probably would mean adventure.
Ooh.
Because it's got stickers of places I've been to. Just here, there's the Georgian flag. It has a Norwegian flag on it somewhere.
Oh yeah, I love that.
There you go. It doesn't actually have a Swedish one, but I do like my weekly plans. It has everything I've done in it, and that's, to me, just like, it's exciting. It's all the fun things ahead because you're planning out your week, and I need that structure to get excited about Monday mornings. So yeah, adventure.
Yeah, I feel inspired to start a journal now.
Same.
Fill it with stories.
I know. Poetry, maybe blog posts.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for being on Sharing Things. I hope you had a good time.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's it.
Cool.
Thank you for listening to Sharing Things. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or Google Play to catch our next episode. Be sure to visit our website to read more about our guests and other episodes at www.ed.ac.uk/sharingthingspodcast with little dashes between the words. You can let us know what you think on the website or by using the hashtag #SharingThingsPodcast. See you next time!